So I'm just leaving McDonald's, and you really kind of see how people are changing and doing different things, but they don't don't understand that, hey, listen, there's changes and people are not, in a sense, used to it. So at McDonald's, putting my card in, and what they're doing now is they're taking the whole card machine, putting it on a pole, and the person the person inside, whose glove doesn't touch your card, so that's really nice, and they stick it out the door. So they don't take your card from you anymore. They stick the whole machine out the door, and then you put your card in the machine. So she says, leave it. And then I'm like, okay, it's like, what does that mean? I don't understand. Leave it. Like, leave it in there? Because I left it in there, but I held on to it. Because usually, when you have your card and you use the little chip reader, you push it in, and then you hold on to it, and they say, hey, yeah, maybe you have to push it in more, so on and so forth. So she was like, no, she meant to, like, leave it in. And then she kind of got a little bit of attitude with it, and she was like, no, do you know what leave it means? And I was like, do you know it's probably better if you just say, let it go? And then she shut up after that and probably said something underneath, like, her mask, which we both were wearing masks. And it's just like, people don't understand the changes that are happening. And I say this not to really complain, but to really just say, we're changing. Like, this is a paradigm shift in so many ways. Like, you're seeing less people on the road. You're seeing people actually reconsidering the leases that they have in terms of running their company. So instead they can run their company from their homes. They can run all their employees can work from their home. With the use of broadband, or the advent really of broadband internet, big companies are saying now, especially with this pandemic, they're almost telling their bankers, such as large banks like JP Morgan Chase and Bank of America, so on and so forth, Wells Fargo, they're saying, hey, listen, we're not getting larger offices, even as they're considering moving out of the state of New York and moving to, like, I think Texas, I believe. I forgot where in Texas, if it's Austin, Houston. But we're seeing a whole paradigm shift where these people are saying, oh, yeah, you don't have to actually work in an office anymore. All of our resources are in the cloud. And then even with it being in the cloud, we have broadband internet. So now that we have this broadband internet, we have the cloud services, we have Microsoft Teams, we have Slack, we have, in terms of cloud services, we have Azure and AWS. In terms of telecommunication, we have, in terms of telecommunications, we've had Asterisk PBX for a while, SIP trunks, so you can actually get your phone service delivered over the actual internet, as opposed to having some leased line of some sort. So you don't really need, damn, that car's fucked up. So you don't really need all the things that we had before. Like, a lot of these things are provided. You just come in with one large pipe, and aka your internet, and that's it. So when I'm seeing all of this happen and people are making these changes or having to make these changes, some people are frustrated. Some people don't know how to actually communicate these changes that are being made. Some people are handling it very well and able to pivot. So this goes into what I really made this video about, and I was just kind of, I wanted to start off with that because, one, as we make these changes, we have to know how to adapt. We have to know how to, in a sense, correct ourselves and understand that the people around us are going through these changes as well alongside us. So, make changes into the way you say things instead of saying, leave it. Just say, hey, let it go. In the sense of, if you're going to get a bigger office space, and again, that's a small thing, right? Then it goes into bigger things like, okay, now that you're looking at getting an office space, do you need to? Can you maybe even have remote workers? I was watching a video with Grant Cardone on it, and he was talking about Open Up America, and he was showing his whole office down here in Florida, how it's this huge space, and they have training courses and all this other stuff. And then he was like, do you think we should open up America? And I put at the bottom, no. I don't think we should open up America, and there's no need to. He's like, well, we're social distancing and moving our tables around. We're only having a couple people in the office. Usually I have 50 people in the sales office. You don't need that anymore. You maybe 10 people on site for certain things, but not even that. You don't even need administrative staff on site. It's not necessary. It hasn't been necessary for decades now. I'd say even 20 years. Just with the advent of and the use of the telephone and just for the use of the telephone and lack of travel and not needing to travel as much. And then, of course, with video conferencing now and then video platforms such as YouTube, which are newer, of course. But just with the telephone alone, you should have cut a lot of that shit out. You just didn't need to. So now the COVID-19 is actually pushing us to the technologies that we've been fighting. And again, it's because we have boomers and Xers that are actually still in quote unquote power or places of power that we're still using these things. But as millennials come around and zillennials come around, all that shit's going to be fucking gone. So I'm saying all that to like pivot, be able to adapt. And we're seeing where a lot of these things, are going to go by the wayside. Grant Cardone having that big office. And he's like, well, I'm just one little guy and I have this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but why? You don't need all that. You don't need all that anymore. You're only doing that because you're used to it. You think you need some big office. In your head, it makes sense to have that big office. But seeing the other side of it, if you 10x your agility and you start to say, oh, okay, I can take this large, now that I have 30 million people out there looking for work that are not all low income earners, they're actually blue collar, high-end blue collar, managerial, white collar folks that were probably even making six figures, and their business totally tanked. In some cases. Now, there's going to be less of those high-end personnel, but when you're hearing things like Lyft getting rid of, I think, 1,100 people or so, yeah, probably, I think about 1,100 people. Yeah, was it? I think it was about 11. They got rid of quite a few people. I was just listening to something. I apologize. It might not have been 1,100. It might have been like 117. Anyways, but how many of those were programmers? How many of those were admin staff, marketing directors? How many of those were people that handled logistics for them in terms of, dealing with cloud assets, so on and so forth? Now you have all these people available. Now, granted, it's going to be hard to, in a sense, reach them, but it may not be. People are still getting hired. Even at my day job, they've hired two people that started this week in one of the departments. And I'm like, why are you still hiring? But we work in mortgages, so with that there's people that there's a big push in terms of the mortgage industry right now, and they're trying to process all these loans and so on and so forth. But when you're looking at all this, it's a possibility for you to actually have more people that you can actually pull and pick from, and at a lower cost. You can come in and say, hey, listen, this is going to cost us X amount of dollars to get this person. It used to now we can get this talent at a discount. So instead of Grant Cardone having these large offices, now he needs to actually pivot to online and remote type workers and remote sales, so on and so forth. These people don't need to come in. He doesn't even have to have people that do any type of accounting or anything like that. They can VPN him. That's not a problem. You can stay your butt home. You need some paperwork? Yeah, you may come into the office, maybe at a scheduled time or something like that, once a week, and that's about it. We can cut down on a lot in terms of our usage of fuel and commute and things like that. Oh wow, there's an airplane flying. I haven't seen those in a while. Look at that. Wow, is it even on the screen? No, it's not. Don't worry. Don't worry about it. It's there, I swear. But there's no need for that. So in terms of agility and moving in certain ways, one thing that I did, and I was alluding to it in the last video where I was showing the new rifle scope and this AR-10 that I got. One thing that I did, I thought about this. I had a American Express card loan, I had an American Express card, defaulted on that because of hard times, and of course they came after me, gave me a subpoena and all that stuff. I paid quite a bit of money down on it, but I didn't pay the entire debt. What I did is I actually settled for less. Now this will do a hit on my credit, but it's actually a lot cheaper. They may still come after me with a 1099-C because they wrote off some of the debt, but it's not a major amount. But using this tragedy, but using this tragedy and taking advantage of it where you can, having some type of creating some type of savings discount, if you will. So what I did is I owed about $5,193. Not about, but $5,193 left, and I was actually going to go ahead and pay the whole thing. Take what little savings that I have and some cash. I would have had some left over, but I was going to take that and pay the whole thing next week. And then I thought to myself, COVID-19, bitch. COVID-19. So I said, oh, okay. Everybody's losing their work. We all know this. Let's go ahead and call them. Called American Express, and I said, hey, listen, my job said they may be cutting hours and maybe even cutting pay. I don't want to because they subpoenaed me. Because the way American Express works, it's essentially you sign a contract, and by not paying, it's a binding contract. By not paying, you're not just defaulting on an unsecured debt. It's actually a contractual loan amount. So that's one thing that they actually do, and that's how they can actually go after you and take you to court for it and possibly even garnish your wages, as opposed to, say, like JP Morgan Chase, where they can't, well, not that they can't, but they don't do that because of the way the debt is. It's unsecured in a different way. So what I did with them is I talked with the guy and I said, hey, listen, I'm not doing too well. We might be going into, I gave him a whole spiel, and I just pretty much acted, and I said, hey, listen, can we come to some type of settlement? He's like, well, Mr. Bogle, you'd have to come to a one lump sum settlement to get this off, and you'd have to pay all this immediately. And I said, well, I got a little bit in savings. I just really don't want you guys to come after me, because ain't nobody calling you to say, hey, oh man, I want to make sure I pay you with the last bit of money I got. Bitch, please. So I said, hey, listen, I want to make sure I pay you guys, because I don't want to go into court for this and be tying up the courts, or being tied up in the court system because of everything that's going on, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, I cut that down by $1,557. So I only had to pay about the exact amount that I had to pay from $5,193. I paid only $3,636. So significant difference. The way the calculation I have in my head was about like $1,557. That's the number I have. So with that, I was able to save that actual money, and now I don't have to take anything out of my savings. I don't have to take anything out of my cash reserves. I don't have to sell anything. All that money is available today because I got both my checks from both my jobs today. Essential nigga shit. So with that, since I'm an essential worker and I can actually, afford to do all this, I said, let me take this chance and make this happen. So I went ahead and did that. And that's kind of looking at things and saying, okay, even staring down this barrel known as COVID-19, pandemic, what have you, economic shift, being able to stay calm and think, because I still got the salon stuff that I have to deal with. How am I going to deal with that being closed? Who knows what they're doing in terms of getting ready to get us out of there, and so on and so forth. So I'm looking at all of it, and I'm trying to say, how can I make little benefits out of this to where when the shit really hits the fan or the shoe drops, I can pivot and do whatever I need to. By doing this, it would have taken me, if I would have just dealt with the payments over the next couple of months, it would have taken me another 5 months to pay that debt off. I've paid it off in a shorter period of time, and I've saved $1,500 by doing that. The guy had came to me. He said, "Hey, listen, Mr. Bogle, can you pay $4,400 or $4,400 or so?" So it would have been a saving of like $700. And I was like, "No, I really don't have that. I mean, can we do about $3,500?" And then the guy said, "Okay, we can do $3,636." And I was like, "Okay, cool, all right." And so I'm waiting for the paperwork. They're gonna do the last draw out next week. And what I might do is start moving money to another checking account to make sure those motherfuckers can't take anything else. I don't think they will, though. They've been pretty much spot on with everything, and I've correlated this with my account and everything like that. So But this is going to save me $1,000 a month that I can now take in terms of like or now take and put it to other debts, kind of like the debt snowball, and then I can even have it to where I can actually even make some other investments as well. So especially in the stock market, which I'm staying away from right now because it's just not matching up, and we all know why. Anyways, that's pretty much it. Guys, learn to understand that we're all going through changes, pivot accordingly, and be agile throughout all of this, and think on your toes in terms of ways that you can actually improve and find some type of positive, financially, mentally, what have you, so that you can get out of this and be on the other side. And then, of course, be ever vigilant and keep your hands clean. As always, thanks for listening.